All right, so
well, howdy folks. Seemingly beautiful day today. However, disaster has struck. Well, in the grand scheme, small potatoes, and having learned from some of our other experiences, we did a little mitigation, and we're always happy to make lemonade out of our lemons. But I had noticed just over the last couple of weeks, especially with the kind of weird seesawing weather, that I was starting to get concerned about the dock being stuck in the water, like stuck in the ice, because what happened, and you know, hindsight's always 20/20, and I know most people will pull, even on a river and that, will pull their docks up onto the shore. But what I didn't do, which I should have done, and life is full of these moments, is I wanted to add a 6-foot section hinged, like a drawbridge that came off the side of the dock, because what I noticed is we can adjust it so when the water comes up too high, we'll pull it in and tighten up the guy wires. But then when the water drops down, it'll start to drop down, then the gangplank will drop down, and then you have trouble opening the door. So what I thought of, but you know, we have all these other things to concern ourselves with. I thought I'd add like a 6-foot section and hinge that so that was floating, and then the gangplank was secured to the shore, and that way it's truly hinged, and the walkway right in front of the door is always level. The reason being too, not just for the sake of being able to open the door without having to do adjustments, was I wanted to be able to set it out fairly deep in the river, like far out before the ice came. And so what happened was we got a whole bunch of rain in the fall and some melting snow that came in early December, which brought the water level up about 3 or 4 feet. So one day we woke up and we saw like almost the entire gazebo on the horizon, which told us that the water had come up quite a bit. So I went down and I brought it in and adjusted it. But then what happened was right from there, the water level dropped another 3 feet again. So all that water that came just kind of flowed out, or they closed the dam upstream, because I really have no idea what, you know, when and why they do what they do there. So it basically had frozen in place where I wanted it, but then the water dropped, so it just, the whole sides of the banks all collapsed like a half pipe. And my suspicion, although it's hard to see underneath the ice and what's actually going on, is that the barrels at the front end of the gazebo actually came down, hit the mud, and were frozen into the bottom. Plus the thing that happens is the ice will freeze all the way to the ground at the edges of a river and a lake too. Like anyone who's been around a lake, the ice will be crazy thick, and all the way to the bottom of the water on the shore and for a ways out. And then once you get out over the open water, because that water is above 0 degrees or above freezing, then you'll just end up with a layer of ice over top. So that's where I wanted it. Well, I sort of wanted the gazebo to be, so that it would rise and fall, and even with the ice, even if it got frozen in the ice, which I knew it would, that eventually when spring came, you know, everything would lift up with it. But what ended up happening, and you can see when Kim takes some pictures, is that front end of it was anchored. And so the back end was lifting, because on the far end there's open water underneath, but at the front end it's frozen into the mud on the bottom of the river. So still had hope that maybe it would thaw out in time to kind of lift before the water came. But then we got another, like just yesterday and the night before, a ton of rain on top of almost all the snow having melted, and now you can see it's like winter again. When we came down, we saw that, you know, there was a couple of cycles of thaw where the water came up and, you know, came up to the barrels, and they're sealed completely except for like a tiny pinhole at the very top. And so what I believe has happened, I'm not 100%, but I'd be surprised if it weren't the case, is that with the freeze and thaw cycles, the water came up over the top of the barrel and then slowly inundated and filled the barrels through those little air holes that help expansion and contraction. So having gone through this before with our gazebo, what we decided to do, because we knew the weather was basically going from like 7 or 8 degrees Celsius to -9 in the space of 12 hours. I didn't want to be working in the open running water and stuff in my hip waders again like last year. So I took the opportunity, just made the decision and blitzed and took the gazebo apart off the deck of the dock. So I had built it all using screws, timberlock screws and heavy deck screws, so I could do something like this if need be. Took about 4 hours in total, which all in all, even though the weather was pretty terrible, wasn't too bad. So I basically just went and took off all the screens and we laid them out on the ground, then took apart the roof and brought that down, and then took apart the walls, which were all timber frame lap joints. So I just had to pull out a big timberlock screw and then disassemble the whole thing and drag it off so that it didn't get bombarded, because my big fear would be if that thing is stuck, like I think it is at the front end on the mud, and that whole structure with the screens was still there. This river can come up as much as 6, 7, maybe even 8 feet if we get enough rain and snow melt all at once. And so my fear would be, all those screens would end up with all that algae and mess and junk all over them. That would be best case scenario. Worst case scenario is some big honking massive tree log comes sailing down and just absolutely demolishes our hard work. So again, it's almost like an IKEA kit. You can see some of it behind me here. Unscrewed it all, took it all off, and then what I think we'll do this summer, because obviously we have a house to build, is I'm just going to pull it up with the tractor. If there is water in the barrels, pump that out, reinflate them, get it floating again so it can serve as our fishing platform and for getting in and out of the canoe and swimming and stuff. And then we'll rethink our gazebo. I might even try and have it winter one more time with that additional hinging, so that I can push it way out into the water, so that even if it drops, it still is, above that point of freezing solid to the bank. And if it does the same thing again, then I'll just give up and call it a day and just say, we just need a lighter structure, maybe set up some wooden rails on the shore so that in the fall we just drag it up with the tractor. Live and learn. And and I know often people, if they leave their docks on water, they either have bubblers to try and keep the water from freezing around, which is impractical in where we live. So again, it is what it is. So a day that we were going to be sitting around doing a bunch of nothing ended up a quick scramble to disassemble the structure. And again, our focus is on building the house. But yeah, good times.
Hey guys, so we have a nice day. It's chilly but sunny and bright, and Al is going to be working on finishing up the Durafoam on the east side of the house. He's going to do the kitchen, and he's also going to do the rest of the great room. And then if he does get that done today, we will likely just sheathe up the gables on both ends, because Al still has to build the contraption for us to be able to put the Tyvek up for our roof plan. So we're just going to play that by ear. We need a calm day for that. And yeah, so our plan for today is set, and after that, we'll keep you posted.
Tell you everything I've seen, the friends I've made, and then you tell me how you've been. Look a little closer, it's been quite some time. You gotta let me know if I'm out of line. But there's some words that I just wanna hear you say, put it all straight before this night turns into day, and then I'm on my way. Yeah. Yes, I'm on my way. A bit naive and so eager Now's the time to reap what I've sown. Your words echoing in every single bone.
The dock survived after all and is still floating. The river is broken up, and although we have some minor repairs to make, we are happy to still have it for the summer. Some of the Rubbermaids broke off the extension, but we were able to retrieve them all before they floated off into the great unknown. It was a fairly inexpensive experiment, but we will definitely stick to the barrels. The shifting of the ice is too rough. We would recommend them as a cost-effective solution for a small floating platform that would be pulled up from the water before freezing. We're already coming up with new ideas to make a better version of the gazebo on the water. Every failure is an opportunity. We have stored all of the parts safely and will revisit this project later, as our first priority is our home. All's well that ends well.